Here is Fred in Cleveland. I'm glad you waited, Fred. You're next on the EIB network. Hi.
Thanks, Rush. It's a great day in America. I think that we are witnessing a tipping point. Not only is the Democrat Party completely falling apart and have lost all control and all reality, we're also seeing things fall apart at the UN, in some of the other major countries. But the bottom line is, I think we have reached a tipping point now where the Republicans see what is possible ahead. Your prediction, if they could only get together for 3 months.
Bingo.
I think that they will be together for the next 3 years. And the Democrats know it. And they are in complete and utter panic. And if I could add, I'm no Charles Krauthammer, but when I look at CNN, Jonestown, and MSNBC, all I see is self-hatred and dysfunction. I fear that when next year hits and the Republicans keep rolling, these people, I don't know how much farther they can fall. What's the next leg down?
Well, let me ask you a question. Fred, let me ask you a question. Do you have any trepidation or fear here that you may be jumping the gun, that you may be providing a little bit too much emphasis on just the passage of one piece of legislation?
The answer is a resounding no. But the reason to that is what's going on with the FBI and the DOJ and Hillary Clinton and the CIA and everything else. Sunlight is being exposed on the inner workings of our government, and the American people have taken over and said, Trump, clean it up, and he's doing it. And there is no stopping the Trump train from here forward.
That's what
I'm convinced of it.
Okay, you sound pretty confident. I wasn't trying to talk you out of it. I was rather asking a question I think many people listening to you are asking, but I'm glad you held firm. I want to take my own stab at this. You have done the job of a great caller, and that is you've inspired me to think about something in a way I haven't thought about it. There's not very many callers that do that, Fred, but you have. It may be tough for me to explain this, but Fred's point is that we've now reached a tipping point that the passage of this legislation unifies the party, and the Democrats are falling apart, the UN is falling apart, all these things, and the Republicans unifying with Trump, exposing all of this corruption, essentially, that is now, it's there for people to see if they're able to see it and notice it, such as the corruption of DOJ and the FBI, the corruption of the United Nations, and so forth. Let me ask a question. How many of you, well, I know what the answer is. How many of you all year long have been on the verge of jumping off the cliff? You voted for Trump and he won, but every day, all day, the media was, not really, he cheated, he colluded, and we're going to get rid of him. And our forces are marshaling the DOJ and the FBI and the deep state and the Russians, and we're going to take this guy out. And we got our special counsel out there, and we're going to be indicting people, and we're going to be sending them to jail. And it's only a moment in time before we get to Trump. You're finished. Trump's finished. None of this was real. It's a one-up. How many of you thought that was what was happening? How many of you feared that that was the reality? And then all of a sudden, here comes Fred. Hey, you know what? This is a tipping point. And you heard what he said. I think the tipping point, Fred, I'm not disagreeing with you. I think the tipping point was Trump's election. I think Trump's election was the bloom coming off the establishment rose. Trump's election is what has caused all of this. They have the unique ability with their media to make it look like what they do, what they think, what they're believing in is the norm, that it's the majority. And therefore, they were able to make it look like Trump's election was a one-off, an oddity, and maybe even the result of cheating, certainly not legitimate. When in fact, the election of Trump, not this bill being, I'm not trying to diminish the impact of the tax cut being passed and signed, but I think the tipping point, meaning the beginning of the end of the establishment, happened with Trump's election. Trump hasn't lost his base. Trump's voters haven't been talked out of supporting him. If anything, and now with this, Trump's base is going to grow. All during this past year, who is it that's actually been acting unfit for office? Who has been acting as a bunch of pigs? Who has been acting as unqualified or corrupt or what? It isn't Trump. It's all the people out to get Trump who are subverting the Constitution, subverting the rule of law, corrupting the media, everything. It's those people that are demonstrating their unfitness. It's those people demonstrating their flaws. But they have the power to make it look like what they are and who they are is what is normal and acceptable and accepted, and that Trump was an accident of either collusion or Hillary didn't do her job right or something. But whatever, Trump winning was just like these bonuses and raises at these 5 or 6 corporations after the tax. That's not real. That's collusion. These people cannot live in reality. They can only live in the alternative reality they create and manage for themselves. No. I'm not disagreeing with Fred. I think the tipping point happened earlier is all. And I believe that his point about the Republicans, now they're unified. Now they've experienced what that unity brings. It brings victory. It brings fun. It brings good vibes. But victory is victory. Winning is winning. There's no substitute for it. And this was winning against some of the longest odds that you've ever seen. And it does. He's right. It inspires confidence, optimism, and it makes them want to do it again. And it also demonstrated to these guys in the Republican Party that they can beat back the media. They can overcome the media. They can survive all of these onslaughts. Even if it does require Trump taking the arrows for it, they can still do it. They've survived the bully. They've been beaten up on the schoolyard every day for how many years? They thought those days would never end. They wanted the bully to stop beating up on them, so they stopped being who they are. All of a sudden, they unified, got strong, stood together, and the bullies got beaten back. Demonstrating that can be done, that can happen. Let me take a brief time out. We will continue in a moment.